Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Vermintide 2 Career Showcase series. And what a time it is to be back at it again, considering the absolute opinionated masterpiece of a map that just dropped on the 28th. The detail is off the charts, even as much as a Darktide map. There's things you can interact with, like a potion generator, something that can best be described as some kind of mysterious telescope. You can go through paintings that double as portals, you climb up giant trees, you visit warped buildings in the middle of an abyss or something. It's mystical, it's taking us on an adventure. The final battle is very lively. You have Alicia and Sienna's evil sister Sophia in a magic battle above the arena. Meanwhile, you are staving off waves of the undead, desperately trying to take Sophia down before it becomes too much and you succumb to the merciless waves of aggression. Seriously, the best map I have ever seen, and kudos to the Fat Shark team for giving us such an astonishing map. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about my third Markus Kruber career review, the Foot Knight. A career that definitely brings a lot to the table, but can still not rank any higher than the third best Kruber career there is. Ranked only higher than the Huntsman. The main reason for this is not based on what the Foot Knight offers as a career, but how it stacks up to the Mercenary and, more specifically, the Grail Knight. But before we get into that, I'd first like to give the Foot Knight some ground to work with, and talk about what makes him unique. Simply put, he gets 10% damage reduction, increasing his maximum effective health from 180 to 198. He has an extra stamina shield, which makes it easier for your melee weapon to start with at least 3.5 stamina bars. It's actually 4.5. I did the math wrong in the last video. Which, for those who are unaware, means it would be more effective to max out block cost thanks to some good old mathematics. He has a passive that grants himself and his nearby allies 15% damage reduction, boosting his own effective health now up to 225. And the Coup de Grace, a career skill that can knock down a lord unless they happen to be fat or can fly. That ends when you either hit too many enemies with it or run into an armored foe. With this in mind, you can start putting together the pieces on what makes him unique. He's a tanky tank with high health, extra defensive capabilities, and some damage reduction. He can also make his allies tankier and digest hordes a little easier. Not bad per se, it's just that the Grail Knight can kind of do all that a bit better, you know? Oh, you can give your allies damage reduction? So can I. Oh, you have some perks that make you tanky? Well, I have an extra melee slot that I can slap a shield on with max defense and push power, so I can handle mixed hordes extremely effectively anytime, anywhere, and I sacrifice basically zero offensive output. Sure, you can attack up to like 70% faster, but there's no power behind those swings. I can throw my weight around at a very exceptional speed, only with a lot more power, like over 50% more. Oh yeah, and while your ult can knock stuff over, mine just kind of obliterates their entire existence, and can stagger them. Oh, and my ult's cooldown regen rate is still really strong, and you wonder why I had to rewrite this script 3 times. Case in point, everything the Foot Knight can do, the Grail Knight can either match or exceed at. So then where does that leave us? Should you just never play the Foot Knight ever again? No, and I'm gonna tell you why. After considering everything, I have mapped out 3 major differences between the Grail Knight and the Foot Knight, and I'd say if you can adapt all 3 of them into your Foot Knight, I'd say he would no doubt have moments where he would be more worth running over a Grail Knight. Starting with key difference number 1, he has a gun! In a regular game of Cataclysm campaign, as a Grail Knight, I have, for the most part, adapted and excelling in combat whilst understanding my vulnerability to pack masters, hunters, etc. But you cannot understate the value of the gun, which can deal with threats long before they ever become a problem. Heck, you can just use it to soften your enemies up before going in if you want to. And on more open maps, like the arena in Trial of Treachery, where they throw a lot of Blightstormers at you, the handgun can do wonders at keeping them in check. So if the situation calls for it, using a gun has its advantages. Key difference number 2, staggering an entire Chaos Patrol. Yeah. Not kidding either. He can actually do that. This thanks in large to the 6th talent set's Battering Ram, which makes his charges wider and infinitely stronger. Doesn't matter how many armored foes you see either, they'll all fall over. And key difference number 3, his ability to seamlessly rescue teammates thanks to everybody's favorite talent from the 5th set, Hero Time, which replenishes your ult even if your allies just got pinned. Blightstormer, Leech, Packmaster, Hunter, any of those situations pop up and your Foot Knight can bulldoze an entire planet just to get to and revive you, or even just save you before you get downed. But Inspiring Blow might have something to say about that. We'll get into it later. And these three differences, added together undoubtedly, to me anyways, make him more than worth running. This isn't to say that you need all three to be effective. You may recall in my intro that I was basically using an entirely different playstyle, but if you don't run these differences, I will say that it might be more worth it to run the Grail Knight at that point. And if you're worried about Counterpunch, I'll say it again, just play Grail Knight. Anyways, how about the talents? Starting off with health regen, I am very happy to report that the Foot Knight has both of my favorite ways to recover temporary health: staggers and hits. I mostly run staggers, but when you're fighting monsters or lords, unstoppable would be more worthwhile. They just don't come up too often. Talent set number 2 has a surprising level of complexity to it. A lot of meta Foot Knights are built to stagger anything with a shield weapon, which requires at least 72.5% power, as that is the highest required power to stagger everything below Chaos Warriors in Vermintide 2 across all 20 careers, aka the Plague Monk. Stagger Force gets you a head start on that threshold, leaving you with 42.5% power in order to reach that threshold. Although personally, my Foot Knight utilizes the Opportunist trait on my shield instead, which frees me up to attack 15% faster every time I push. And I'd say you push a lot more than you can utilize 15% crit chance. Funny thing too, Opportunist says push strength, but it's actually just coded into anything that staggers, including hits. Crazy, right? Following the theme of reaching 72.5% power, for talent set number 3, you run Enhanced Power. To put it simply, Mainstay is just not that impressive. It does no additional damage if you perform a push combo, so you can't actually deal 40 to 60% more damage to staggered enemies. For the most part, it's just about your left clicks, and even then, it's not really all that impressive. If I was using the mace and sword, then maybe I'd consider it. But it's very clear what Mainstay is supposed to represent: minor horde power, nothing more. And that really sucks too, because if you told me that I could deal with elites 60% more effectively, I would gladly give up 5% attack speed for 60% more elite damage. And then we had our second big discovery, the Comrades in Arms meta versus Bloody Teamwork and Rock of Reikland. And I can understand why Comrades is the meta. You get that oh so important power boost, but also give your closest ally 50% damage reduction and still keep your passive 15%. Not a bad deal for you and that one other person, but what about the other half of your team? I mean, sure, staying as a group can be hard, but to deny them even a crumb of damage reduction? That was a bridge I could not bring myself to cross. And so I went without it, for a while at least. I'll just find another way to reach the threshold, which is why I use Opportunist in the first place. Talent set number 5 we already went over. I like Hero Time. However, after doing some testing, it became increasingly difficult to ignore Inspiring Blow. Firstly, the thing about Cataclysm games is that there is no shortage of elites the game throws your way. Second, the ult regen works on you too, and since you recover roughly 3 seconds of ult per second while continuously staggering, in the best case scenario, it'll take just over 10 seconds to fully recover your ult. And that's before you take into consideration the fact that this effect also works towards your allies' cooldown. The thing holding me back from acknowledging Inspiring Blow for the longest time was that I didn't know what percentage of cooldown on average you would be saving. For the Foot Knight, 10% is 3 seconds. By staggering 2 elites, I just matched the 10% cooldown property for my trinket. A ranger, however, would be 12 seconds, meaning I would need to stagger 8 elites in order to give the ranger at least 10%, which is also not hard to do. Following that, having my ult back more often without hero time means I can use it a bit more in place of counterpunch. Who cares about free pushes when your ult is like a super push? So it eases the burden of extra tankiness and offers an actually pretty powerful ability that, yes, is yet another reason why you should pick Foot Knight over a Grail Knight. And talent set number 6 is no different. A very generous 30% attack speed bonus, 3 seconds of invulnerability, or an entire Chaos Patrol. I rest my case. And as you can all plainly see, I still haven't reached the 72.5% mark. I estimate it's currently at either 57.5 or 67.5, which is where the charm comes into play. 10% power versus Skaven, 10% power versus Berserkers, and boom, 72.5% power versus Plague Monks. For my shield weapon, I run with attack speed and block cost. You could also run with the Bretonnian Longsword, which requires much less power in order to stagger Plague Monks. My main issue is that pushing is now a nuisance more than anything, and 15% crit chance has its moments, but mostly comes and goes. I mostly just don't like how slow it is. I also tried out the Mason Sword and found that its left click has the same stagger force as a shield push, but only if you're hitting one Plague Monk at a time, with diminishing returns the more enemies you hit. Range weapon, I go for crit chance and power versus armored or infantry, Scrounger for the trait. Necklace, I go stamina since I do a lot of pushing, health, and bark skin. However, Boon of Shalia is not a bad choice either. Trinket, I run ult reduction, stamina regen, and shrapnel, but there is an argument to be made for revive speed instead of ult reduction due to how small the ult cooldown is for the Foot Knight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the conclusion of the absolute brain-scratching badassery that is the Foot Knight. Perhaps belittled as the little brother compared to his other styles of play, but undeniably capable and strong in ways even the Grail Knight can't beat. I really wish I took this breakpoint stuff more seriously, because now I can make my other tank careers I've already done videos on even stronger than they were before. In fact, I'll really quickly show my adjusted builds for the Ironbreaker, Grail Knight, Outcast Engineer, and Handmaiden, by the way. The Handmaiden just needs to push once to get the staggers going, and now has 12 stamina bars as well as 130% stamina regen. Have fun thinking about that for a while. The Ironbreaker was tough since the talents that get him to the threshold aren't exactly super reliable. If your team is good against hordes, then the Troll Hammer with Blood of Grimnir works better too. If your team is worse against hordes, then a Drakefire gun with Under Pressure works better. Anyways, unfortunately for me, now I have no choice but to do 2 Sienna videos back to back, so that'll be fun. Later, peoples! What the fuck? Easy. Throw it into a wall. Yeah, what the fuck?
But I bet she's not dead.
Oh, Sophia has a vengeful streak a mile wide.
Just try to stop me.